Click, click, click. That is the sound of a mechanical kill counter built into the lens of a helmet that has not been removed in 10,000 years. Each click is a life. Each click is a skull. Each click is another soul fed screaming into the mouth of a god who will never, ever be full. And somewhere in this galaxy, right now, that counter is still ticking. The 41st millennium does not lack for ways to die. The air on most worlds will choke you. The water will dissolve your insides. The ground itself might crack open and swallow entire cities before breakfast. But there is a vast and terrible distance between dying to a stray round in some nameless trench and being selected, tracked, and methodically destroyed by something that was built, born, or eternally damned to end lives as its only reason for existing. Something that does not stop. Something that cannot tire. Something that knew exactly how you would die before you even knew it was in the same star system. Every faction in this galaxy has produced them. The Imperium of Man, the howling legions of chaos, the ancient and dying Eldari, even the demonic hosts of the warp itself. They all have their apex predators, their living weapons, their nightmares given flesh and bone and volcanic unquenchable fury. These are not commanders directing forces from armored bunkers behind the front. These are the beings who walk onto a battlefield and warp its outcome through the sheer gravitational horror of their presence. Entire armies have shattered against them. Their names travel in whispers between soldiers who have never laid eyes on them, because the stories alone are enough to rob you of sleep for every remaining night of your short, wretched existence. We are going to talk about 10 of them, 10 of the most feared warriors in the entire Warhammer 40,000 universe. Some are human, some were human once, some never had that luxury, but they all share one terrible commonality. If you see them coming, the fight is already over. So settle in, keep your voice low, and pray to whatever god still listens that none of these names ever turn their gaze toward you. Number 1. Kharn the Betrayer. Let us start with a man who has been killing for over 10,000 years and has never once slowed down. Not once. Not even for a second. Kharn the Betrayer is a Chaos Space Marine of the World Eaters Legion, the single greatest champion of Khorne in the entire galaxy, and second only to the Daemon Primarch Angron himself in terms of raw killing power. His personal body count is said to be somewhere in the millions, though the truth is that nobody really knows the exact number, not even Kharn. He stopped keeping track a long time ago. Well, that is not entirely accurate. He has a mechanical kill counter built into the lens of his helmet, an archaic device gifted to him by Horus himself during the Great Crusade that tallies every single life he takes in battle. The numbers tick upward constantly. Click, 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 one after another, friend and foe alike. Because Khorne, the blood god, the lord of skulls and slaughter, cares not from where the blood flows, only that it flows. And no living creature in the galaxy has made it flow quite like Kharn. But here is the thing that makes Kharn's story so much more than just a tale of mindless butchery. He was not always like this. During the Great Crusade, back when the Imperium was still young and the Emperor of Mankind still walked among his people, Kharn was actually the voice of reason within the 12th Legion. He served as captain of the 8th Assault Company of the Warhounds, and he was described as having a long and noble face, a deeply bronzed warrior with real intelligence behind his eyes. He was one of the very few beings in the entire Imperium who could actually calm his Primarch Angron during his violent rages. And to understand how incredible that is, you need to understand what Angron was. Angron was a broken demigod with neural implants called the Butcher's Nails hammered directly into his brain, crude devices that amplified aggression to the point of absolute madness, while slowly eking away at the parts of the brain responsible for any emotion other than rage. Calming Angron down was like trying to reason with a hurricane, and Kharn could do it. He was the equerry of a monster, and he managed it through patience, empathy, and genuine care for the tortured creature that was his gene-father. He formed real friendships during those years. His bond with the word-bearer Captain Argel Tal was deep and meaningful, a relationship so stabilizing that the treacherous chaplain Erebus of the word-bearers Had Tal murdered specifically because he feared it would prevent Kharn from becoming the monster that the Chaos Gods needed him to be? Erebus knew that as long as Kharn had someone to anchor him, someone who could reach past the nails and speak to the man underneath, Kharn might never fully fall. So Erebus removed that anchor. And when Kharn found out what had happened, he nearly killed Erebus on the spot. He beat the word-bearer so badly that it took extensive medical attention to put him back together. But the damage was already done. The one person who could have saved Kharn's soul was gone. From there, the descent was rapid and absolute. With Arjael Tal dead, his Primarch falling into full demonic madness, and the butcher's nails slowly devouring what was left of his own higher brain functions, Kharn threw himself into battle with a fury that shocked even his brothers in the World Eaters. During the Horus Heresy, he fought at the massacre on Istvan III, where he was believed killed in combat against the loyalist Lunar Wolf Garviel Loken. The two fought hand to hand until Loken threw Kharn against the dozer blades of a nearby vehicle, impaling him through the chest. His brothers carried his body away, certain he was dead. 6 months later, Kharn woke up. Whether Khorne breathed life back into his favorite champion, or whether Kharn's own relentless spirit simply refused to leave, is something that no one has ever been able to answer. But from that point forward, there was no going back. Whatever remained of the reasonable, thoughtful warrior that Kharn had once been was buried under an avalanche of blood and rage that has not stopped falling for 10 millennia. He fought through the Shadow Crusade, slaughtering populations across the Ultramarines' home systems. He helped lead the assault on the Eternity Wall spaceport during the Siege of Terra. He fought the legendary Imperial Fist swordsman Sigismund in single combat during the desperate final days of the siege. And while Sigismund was the superior technical fighter, by virtually every measure, he simply could not match the raw cornate power that was surging through Kharn's corrupted body. It took Rogal Dorn himself, a Primarch, physically swatting Kharn aside like an insect to save his champion from being overwhelmed. Abaddon had to launch a rescue mission just to get Kharn out alive after that. During the assault on the Eternity Wall spaceport, Kharn slew the Sisters of Silence commander Janicia Crow, one of the most important figures on the Loyalist side, without even registering what he had killed. That is how far gone he was. The nails were screaming, the blood was flowing, nothing else existed. But the event that truly earned Kharn his infamous title happened after the heresy, on the demon world of Skalathrax. The World Eaters and Emperor's children had been fighting each other for dominance in the Eye of Terror. But when the temperature on Skalathrax dropped to levels that would freeze even a space marine to death, both sides retreated to shelter and agreed to a ceasefire until morning. Kharn saw this as cowardice, unforgivable, pathetic, inexcusable cowardice. He grabbed a flamer, which would later become known as the burning brand of Skalathrax, and he set fire to the foxholes. His own foxholes. He burned out his own brothers. He burned out the Emperor's children. He forced both sides back into the freezing killing fields, and then he killed them all. World Eaters and Emperor's children alike, indiscriminately, without pause, without mercy, without any distinction between friend and enemy. Name. That night shattered the 12th Legion forever, breaking it into the scattered and leaderless warbands that it exists as to this very day. And that is how he earned his name, the Betrayer. His body was later recovered frozen solid in the ice, and here is the part that makes even hardened veterans of the Long War uncomfortable. His kill counter was still ticking. Click, click, click. Even frozen, even apparently dead, the counter kept going. His brothers thawed him out. He resumed killing without a single word of explanation. He has never stopped since. For 10,000 years, Kharn has wandered the galaxy following the scent of blood among the stars. He has killed Hive Tyrants, Necron Overlords, Eldari Autarchs, Orc War Bosses, Grey Knights Brother Captains, and countless thousands of other champions and warriors from every race and faction in existence. He once boarded the Blood Angels strike cruiser Sanguine Tear during the 7th Black Crusade, and was the first warrior in and the last warrior out, leaving behind nothing but corpses and fire. Every living thing on that ship died, and Kharn walked away from it without a backward glance. He has killed the living Saint Celestine in single combat. He carries Gorechild, one of a pair of chain axes that once belonged to Angron himself, its adamantine teeth, taken from the jaw of a Mica dragon on the World Eater's homeworld of Nuceria. The weapon is said to have developed a thirst of its own over the millennia, feeding the souls of its victims directly to Kharn with every kill. Today, Kharn exudes a blood mist wherever he walks, an unnatural crimson haze that allows demons to manifest in his vicinity and drives lesser beings to madness before he even reaches them. He is immune to psychic powers, protected by the blessing of the blood god, which means that the entire discipline of warp-based warfare is simply useless against him. Psychers, sorcerers, librarians, none of them can touch him. Fighting alongside Kharn is almost as dangerous as fighting against him. His allies know this. They give him a wide berth, staying well out of melee range whenever possible, because if Kharn runs out of enemies to kill, he will turn on the nearest living thing without hesitation. But they follow him anyway, because where Kharn goes, the slaughter is absolute, and for the followers of Kharn, there is no higher calling than that. Number 2. Lucius the Eternal. If Kharn is the most unstoppable killer in the galaxy, then Lucius the Eternal is the most inescapable. Because killing Lucius is not the hard part. Any warrior with enough skill or enough luck can put Lucius down. Swords, axes, bolt rounds, plasma fire, Necron Gauss weaponry, it has all been done. Lucius has been killed more times than he can remember, and there are enormous gaps in his memory, stretches of time between deaths that he simply cannot account for. No, the hard part is not killing Lucius. The hard part is what happens afterward. Lucius was once a Lord Commander of the Emperor's Children, the 3rd Legion of Space Marines, created from the gene seed of the Primarch Fulgrim. Before the heresy, before the corruption of chaos twisted him into the horror he is today, Lucius was widely considered the single finest swordsman in all of the Space Marine legions. That is not a small claim. We are talking about millions of superhuman warriors, each one trained from childhood in the art of killing, and Lucius stood above every last one of them with a blade in his hand. He was handsome, talented, charismatic in his own arrogant way, and absolutely insufferable about all of it. He was immature, petulant, egotistical, and impulsive. He knew he was the best, and he wanted everyone else to know it too, constantly, loudly, and at length. The scars that cover his face today are self-inflicted. That is an important detail. When a sparring bout with the lunar wolf Garviel Loken left his nose improperly set, Lucius was so enraged by the imperfection, so furious that his once perfect features had been permanently marred, that he began cutting his own flesh in intricate patterns. Each scar marked a victory, a lesson, or a slight that he refused to forget. Pain and pride became the same thing for him, inseparable, feeding into each other in an endless cycle of sensation and ego. And it was that cycle, that inability to separate suffering from satisfaction, that made him the perfect candidate for the attention of Slaanesh, the chaos god of excess, pleasure, and sensation. When the heresy came, Lucius fell with his legion. He had actually sided with the loyalists at first, during the betrayal at Istvan III, but his ego could not handle being on the losing side, and he defected back to the traitors. From that point forward, his descent was swift and absolute. The Emperor's children as a whole were consumed by their pursuit of sensation, every kind of sensation, and Lucius was at the very front of that slide into depravity. He fought with the possessed Lair Blade, a demon sword that whispered to him constantly, stoking his insecurities and driving him to greater and greater displays of superiority. He was involved in some of the most tragic events of the heresy, including the campaign at Istvan V and the corrupted assault on the Eldari. But the truly nightmarish chapter of Lucius's story begins after his first true death. When Lord Commander Sirius of the Emperor's Children killed Lucius in gladiatorial combat sometime after the retreat into the Eye of Terror, Slaanesh took notice. The god of excess could not allow such a promising champion to simply cease to exist. And so, over the following days, Sirius began to change. Limes appeared across his skin, spreading like cracks in old porcelain. His hair fell out in clumps. His features twisted, warped, and reshaped themselves. And then Lucius was standing there again, alive and whole, clad in armor that now bore a new screaming face upon its surface. The face of Sirius. still conscious, still aware, still screaming, trapped for eternity in the warped metal of Lucius's armor. This is the curse of Lucius the Eternal. Anyone who kills him and feels even the faintest flicker of satisfaction, pride, pleasure, or accomplishment in the act will begin to transform. It does not matter how righteous the kill is. It does not matter how justified. If you feel good about it, even for a heartbeat, even unconsciously, even in the smallest and most fleeting way, you are already lost. Over hours or days, your flesh warps and your features twist, and Lucius is reborn in your body, while your soul is added to the chorus of screaming faces that cover his armor, conscious, trapped, and unable to do anything except scream for all of eternity. The scope of this curse is staggering. It has claimed Space Marines, Eldari Exarchs, Orc Warbosses, and even Necrons. In one recorded incident, a Necron duelist known as the Phasing Sword, a machine being theoretically incapable of any emotion, cut Lucius down on a nameless moon near the planet Damnos. The machine took a cold pride in its victory, and that was enough. Even the body of living metal could not prevent the curse from taking hold. Some have theorized that the satisfaction might have come not from the Necron itself, but from something further back in the chain. Perhaps the machine that forged the weapon the Necron used. Perhaps the artisan who took pride in their craftsmanship. It does not matter. The curse found a thread of satisfaction somewhere, and it pulled. Over the millennia, Lucius has hunted down the deadliest fighters in the galaxy for the sheer pleasure of defeating them in single combat. He defeated the Drukhari Archon Vresk in Cursed Shardam. He killed the Emperor's champion of the Black Templars at Veilfate. He cut down a Death Guard Plague champion aboard the Diadem, and he put down the Orc Warboss Two Claws at Octaria Sigma. He carries the Lash of Torment, a demon-infused whip that strikes with lethal precision, and the ornate silver blade of Lair, his armor of shrieking souls, powered by the thousands of souls trapped within it, offers him supernatural protection and can discharge the cacophony of its tormented prisoners as devastating sonic attacks. He even carries a combat stimulant rack on his back, designed by the Drukhari, which he won after emerging as champion in the gladiatorial arenas of Comorig itself. Fighting Lucius is a moral trap with no clean exit. To defeat him with any sense of accomplishment is to become him. To fight him without any satisfaction at all requires a level of emotional emptiness that is almost impossible for any sentient being to achieve. The only truly safe approaches are to trap or contain him without killing him, which is extraordinarily difficult given his skill, or to have him killed by something genuinely incapable of any form of satisfaction, which, as the Necron incident proved, may not even be possible. Every warrior who defeats Lucius and feels proud of it has, in the eyes of Slaanesh, indulged in exactly the kind of excess and pride that the Chaos God feeds upon. Victory against Lucius is not really victory at all. It is an offering, and the galaxy's deadliest swordsman will always collect. Number 3. Constantin Valdor. Not every feared warrior on this list earned their reputation through cruelty or madness. Some earned it through something far more terrifying in its own way. Pure, absolute, undeniable competence. The kind of competence that does not need to boast or threaten or make examples. The kind that simply walks into a room and immediately makes everyone in it aware that they are outmatched in every way that matters. Constantin Valdor, the first of the 10,000, the shield of the Emperor, Captain General of the Legio Custodes, was possibly the finest individual combatant the Emperor of mankind ever created. And he was not a Primarch. That distinction is enormously important, because Valdor is often spoken about in the same breath as the Emperor's 20 genetically engineered sons, and by many accounts he could have matched one of them in single combat. He stood eye to eye with them. He was their equal in martial power. When Loyalist Space Marines witnessed Valdor in combat during the Siege of Terra, they reported that the Captain General cut through traitor Marines as easily as those same Marines would cut through unarmored human civilians. That comparison bears repeating. A single man butchering Chaos Space Marines, warriors who were themselves superhuman and wrapped in the finest power armor available, with the same effortless superiority that those Marines would use against baseline humans. That was Valdor. That was just a Tuesday for him. The origins of Valdor are shrouded in layers of secrecy that not even the Custodes themselves can fully penetrate. According to the scientist Amar Astarte, who helped design the Primarch project, the Emperor moved entire armies across continents just to locate and retrieve the child who would become Valdor, and his original parents were killed in the process. Valdor himself remembers almost nothing of his life before entering the Emperor's service, a fact that he has apparently accepted with the same stoic calm that characterized everything else about him. He may have been the first custodian ever created, or simply the first successful one. Either way, he predates every single Primarch, and his records stretch back further than any Space Marine Legion in existence. He carried the Apollonian Spear, a guardian spear believed to have been forged by the Emperor's own hand and wielded by the Master of Mankind during the Unification Wars, before being passed to Valdor upon his elevation to Chief Custodian. It was one of the finest weapons ever created, combining a power blade with an integrated bolter in a design that perfectly suited Valdor's fighting style. And his fighting style was simple. It was better than yours. Whatever you brought to the fight, Valdor brought something superior. Whatever technique you had mastered, Valdor had mastered it first, and then improved upon it. He did not have a signature move or a flashy combat doctrine. He was simply faster, stronger, smarter, and more skilled than anything he faced, and he applied those advantages with the cold precision of a surgical instrument. During the Siege of Terra, when the traitor forces of Horus assaulted the Imperial Palace, Valdor was everywhere. He fought in the war within the Webway. He sat on the Loyalist War Council, alongside Malcador, Rogel Dawn, and the other surviving leaders. He returned the Spear of Rust to Lehman Russ before the Wolf King departed to confront Horus directly. And when the final teleportation assault sent the Emperor and his forces aboard the Vengeful Spirit for the climactic battle against Horus, Valdor was there. He was summoned to the Emperor's side for that last desperate gamble. But the fighting aboard the Vengeful Spirit separated Valdor from the Emperor. He found himself trapped in darkness, surrounded by daemons, caught in a trap that Horus had designed specifically to torment and delay the Captain General. For the first time in his existence, Valdor felt something that he could only describe as close to fear. Not fear of death, fear of failure, fear that he might not be able to reach his master in time. But that fear did not slow him down, not even slightly. He slaughtered his way through hordes of daemons, plunging the Apollonian spear into the floor of the ship, just to confirm that he was actually aboard the Vengeful Spirit, and not lost in some warp-spawned illusion. When he finally encountered mortal enemies, sons of Horus and word-bearers, he cut through them as well. He spotted Abaddon, the first captain of the Sons of Horus, injured, exhausted, outnumbered by more than 30 to 1, fighting alongside what remained of his Custodes against Justerin Terminators, empowered by Erebus's warp rituals. Valdor kept fighting. He was impaled by a power sword. He kept fighting. He managed to wound Abaddon with the Apollonian spear even as he was being overwhelmed. But the most fascinating and enduring mystery about Constantin Valdor is what happened after the heresy ended. When the Emperor was interred upon the Golden Throne, Valdor briefly served as a High Lord of Terror, helping to guide the Imperium through its darkest hours. And then, one night, without explanation, without farewell, without leaving any record or instruction, he simply left. He walked out of the Imperial Palace in the dead of night, paused once at the gates to look back at the structure he had defended his entire life, whispered the first half of the old Imperial quote, "Only in death," and disappeared into the darkness. No death was recorded. No body was ever found. No explanation was ever given. Even the Custodes, the most elite and well-informed warriors in the Imperium, do not know what happened to their first Captain General. There are theories. A mysterious book, recovered and translated by the Inquisitor Gideon Ravenor, identified a figure known as the King in Yellow who appears to be Valdor, still alive and working towards some unknown purpose, after 10,000 years. If that is true, then the most dangerous individual combatant the Emperor ever created, the man who predates every Primarch and every Space Marine Legion, the Guardian whose loyalty to the Master of Mankind was so absolute that he would have taken his own life rather than risk the Emperor's, is still out there somewhere, still carrying out a mission that only he and the Emperor understand, still dangerous, still watching. Number 4. Drazhar. deep in the twisting, impossible architecture of Commorragh, the nightmare city of the Drukhari that exists within the ancient tunnels of the Webway. There is a figure that even the most sadistic and murderous aliens in the galaxy speak about, with a mixture of awe, fear, and something that might almost be called reverence. His name is Drazhar. It means living sword in the Eldari language, and nobody in the galaxy knows who or what he actually is. What is known is this. One day, without any warning, without any invitation, without any prior communication of any kind, a warrior clad in ancient segmented armor, of a design that no living incubus recognized, walked through the gates of the great shrine of the Incubi, the most sacred and feared temple of blade masters in all of Commorragh. He did not announce himself. He did not explain his presence. He simply walked inside and started cutting. Every guard who tried to stop him lost their hands. He left a trail of dismembered fingers and fallen weapons on the stone floor behind him as he moved through the shrine with the calm, unhurried pace of someone who has absolutely nothing to fear. When he reached the inner sanctum, the most protected chamber in the entire complex, he stopped in front of the enthroned hierarch of the shrine, the single greatest swordsman in the order, and saluted him in the traditional challenge posture. The hierarch was not afraid. He was amused. He was the undisputed master of this place, the best fighter in a cult of fighters whose entire existence was dedicated to perfecting the art of killing with a blade. He rose from his throne, stepped into the candlelit dueling circle, assumed his battle stance, and waited for this mysterious interloper to make the first move. The duel that followed lasted minutes. It might have lasted less. The hierarch's supreme confidence evaporated almost instantly as his challenger blurred into action with a speed that defied everything the old master thought he understood about combat. Twin demiclave blades struck from angles that should not have been possible, each cut so precise and so perfectly placed that the hierarch barely had time to register the pain before another wound opened on his body. Within moments, the greatest swordsman in the Incubi order was lying on the ground in pieces, and the stranger stepped over his dismembered corpse, cleaned his blades with a single practiced motion, and made a small bow. He has not spoken a single word since that day, not one. He has never removed his helmet, not even to eat or sleep, and it is unclear whether he does either of those things at all. He has never claimed the title of hierarch or any position of formal authority within the order. He is the executioner, the sacred champion of the Incubi, and he wanders from shrine to shrine across Commorragh, leading war parties of Incubi to seek out the greatest warriors of enemy races and destroy them in personal combat. No challenger has ever defeated him. Every warrior who has stepped into the circle with him has been taken apart. He is said to have single-handedly dispatched a trio of custodian guards in close-quarters combat, which, if true, would place him in a vanishingly small category of fighters anywhere in the galaxy. The mystery of his identity has spawned endless theories and bitter arguments throughout the Dark City. Within weeks of his dramatic appearance, it was confirmed that no Incubi shrine anywhere in Commorragh had ever heard of him or recognized his ancient and unique war gear. Some whisper that he is actually Ara, the fallen Phoenix, the legendary founder of the Incubi Order and the original Phoenix Lord of the Striking Scorpion's Aspect Warriors, a being who betrayed his own kind and turned to the dark paths of the Drukhari. Aha was the most sinister of all the Phoenix Lords, last seen dueling his successor Karandras for 17 straight days on the lost craft world of Xandros, before being tricked into a murderous frenzy that caused him to butcher his own followers and vanish. Others say that Drazhar's armor is merely filled with bone dust, that there is nothing alive inside the suit at all, and that the armor itself is what fights. The truth, or at least a fragment of it, may have been revealed during recent events. Drazhar was hired by the Supreme Overlord Asdrubael Vecht to hunt down and kill Yvraine, the prophet of the Inari. During this pursuit, he ambushed and fought the Phoenix Lord Jain Zar in the shadow realm of Shardome, personally cutting her clean in two before giving her armor to the mandrakes of Aelendrak to ensure she could never be reborn. But Enid, the Eldari god of the dead, intervened and granted Jain Zar another life. When Drazhar learned of her resurrection, he tracked her to the lost craft world of Xandros, and fought her again. This time, empowered by Yanid's divine energy, Jain Zar was the victor, and Drazhar was slain in the ruins. But after the battle, a Drukhari survivor named Clivex Darakinia Thremens discovered the discarded armor and mask of Drazhar. She put them on, and she was immediately consumed, her personality erased and replaced by Drazhar's consciousness, in a process identical to how a true Phoenix Lord transfers between hosts. That single act provided more evidence for the aura theory than decades of speculation ever had. Drazhar walks again, and the question of what he truly is remains one of the most tantalizing mysteries in the entire setting. Number 5. Lelith Hesperax. If Drazhar is the silent and faceless master of the blade, then Lelith Hesperax is his polar opposite in every way except lethality. She is the queen of knives, the grand succubus of the cult of strife, the undisputed champion of the gladiatorial arenas of Camorra, and she is the single deadliest gladiator in the entire galaxy. Bar none. Full stop. There is no one better, and she fights wearing almost nothing. That is not an exaggeration or a joke. Lelith's preferred combat dress is to expose as much bare skin as possible and to wear her floor-length hair loose and unbound. Where other fighters pile on layers of armor and force fields and protective technology, Lelith wears a minimal body glove and carries nothing more than a pair of wickedly sharp knives. Not power weapons, not exotic alien technology. Simple blades, as basic and primitive as anything a human blacksmith might pound out on an anvil. Her hair is sewn through with razor-sharp barbs and tiny hooks that can open arteries. Her fingernails have been honed to the sharpness of surgical scalpels. And that is it. That is her entire arsenal. Knives, fingernails, and hair. The reason she fights this way is to taunt her opponents. Every inch of exposed flesh is a dare. Every strand of loose hair is an invitation to grab hold and try, just try, to land a killing blow. She is telling her enemies, silently and with perfect confidence, that she does not need armor. She does not need technology. She does not need anything except her own inhuman speed and the simple cutting edges in her hands. And she is right. Instances have been recorded of Lelith fighting and defeating up to 10 opponents simultaneously, without receiving a single scratch. Not a cut, not a bruise, not a mark of any kind anywhere on that deliberately exposed skin. He dances between them, each movement a performance as much as an attack, gifting each opponent a single precisely chosen wound before spinning away to the next. The crowd watches in rapture. The victims watch in dawning horror as they realize that this woman is not just faster than them. She is operating on a level of martial artistry so far above them that she could kill them at any time, and is simply choosing not to. Because where is the entertainment in a quick death? Rival witch cults have long whispered that her skill must be unnatural, that she was secretly modified by the homunculi, the twisted flesh sculptors of Camorra, that she sleeps in a sarcophagus filled to the brim with stimulant serum, that some dark pact with forbidden powers gives her an edge that no natural-born warrior could possess. The truth is far simpler and far more frightening. Lelith Hesperax is a natural-born killer. There is no augmentation, no secret enhancement, no pact. She is simply a genius of violence, gifted with the same kind of innate, inexplicable mastery that some musicians have for their instruments, or some mathematicians have for numbers. She was born to fight, and she has spent her entire life perfecting that gift until it reached a level that other warriors cannot even comprehend, let alone match. She is a master of every witch weapon ever made, but she chooses to use simple knives because nothing else gives her a sufficient challenge. On the battlefields of the 41st millennium, away from the screaming crowds of Camorra's arenas, Lelith is equally terrifying. Her speed and skill make her effectively untouchable in hand-to-hand combat, and she will only agree to join real space raids when she wishes to seek out unusual prey, hunting down the champions and heroes of alien races for the thrill of testing herself against something she has never faced before. She has recently joined forces with the Ynnari, the followers of the elderly god of the dead, committing much of the strength of the cult of strife to the war against Slaanesh. This brought her into conflict with Asdrubael Vecht, the supreme overlord of Camorra, who took advantage of her absence to promote a rival witch cult under her old enemy Morgana Nathrax. The political fallout has been bloody and complicated, but Lelith has navigated it with the same lethal grace she brings to everything else. There is one fight that Lelith wants above all others. She has expressed a burning desire to capture Lucius the Eternal, strip him of his demon-cursed armor, and face him one-on-one in the Crucible arena. A fight between the galaxy's deadliest natural swordswoman and a man who cannot permanently die. She believes it would be the greatest duel Komara has ever seen, and she might be right. Number 6. The Solitaire. Among the Aeldari Harlequins, the mysterious warrior troubadours who serve the laughing god Segurak, there is no figure more feared, more respected, or more pitied than the Solitaire. These are the loneliest warriors in the galaxy, beings who have accepted a fate so terrible that even speaking to one outside of a formal ritual performance is considered grounds for a death sentence, not as punishment, but as mercy, because the alternative is worse. To understand the Solitaire, you need to understand the Harlequins and their great performance. The Dance Without End. This is a ritualized retelling of the fall of the Aeldari, the cataclysmic event that destroyed an entire galactic civilization and birthed the chaos god Slaanesh. Every member of a Harlequin masque plays a role in this performance, taking on the part of some historical or mythological figure from Eldari legend. But there is one role that no ordinary Harlequin can play, the role of Slaanesh itself. She who thirsts, the great enemy, the being that devoured the souls of billions and ended the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. Any Harlequin who attempts to portray Slaanesh without the proper preparation and spiritual fortitude is driven utterly insane. In some recorded cases, this madness manifested as cannibalism, with the afflicted Harlequin attacking and consuming other Aeldari while still alive, lost in a psychotic break that could not be reversed. Only a Solitaire can play this role and survive with their sanity intact, and the price for doing so is absolute. The Solitaire's soul is forfeit to Slaanesh. This is not a metaphor. It is not a philosophical statement. It is a literal, binding, metaphysical fact. When a Solitaire dies, their essence belongs to the Prince of Excess. The laughing god Segurak, the Eldari trickster deity, fights for the soul of every fallen Solitaire in a desperate gamble against Slaanesh, a contest that the laughing god can only win through trickery and cunning. And he does not always win. This means that every Solitaire goes into every fight, every performance, and every moment of their isolated existence, knowing with absolute certainty that death may result in an eternity of torment at the hands of the most sadistic entity in the warp. This knowledge does two things to a Solitaire. First, it makes them utterly fearless, because when the worst possible outcome is already guaranteed, there is nothing left to be afraid of. And second, it makes them fight with a desperate intensity that even other Harlequins cannot match. Because every moment of freedom is borrowed time, every fight might be their last, and they intend to make the cost of their existence as expensive as possible for the enemies of their people before the bill comes due. In combat, a Solitaire is a blinding blaze of light and color that moves at speeds the naked eye cannot follow. Their kicks and punches come so fast that most enemies are dead before they even realize the fight has begun. Bullets, lass fire, and bolt rounds seem unable to find their mark as the Solitaire dances through the carnage, weaving between attacks with the same impossible grace that they bring to their stage performances. It is said that each Solitaire is the equal of a full squad of lesser warriors, and many who have witnessed them in action believe that estimate to be extremely conservative. They wear hollow suits that project bewildering patterns of light and color, but the Solitaire covers theirs with an austere hooded coat, concealing their appearance until the moment they strike. Only then do they remove the hood and display their demon-faced mask, the visage of Slaanesh itself, and by the time their enemies see it, they are already dying. There are tales of Solitaires performing feats that border on the supernatural, distorting time, crossing entire battlefields in the space of a single heartbeat, appearing from nowhere and vanishing just as quickly. In one famous recorded event from the year 113 of the 41st millennium, a Solitaire dueled the infamous bloodletter champion known as Skulltaker before the Gate of Souls, a confrontation that mirrored the eternal hatred between the chaos gods Kharn and Slaanesh. At the height of the duel, with the two combatants locked in a battle of devastating skill and fury, the Solitaire deliberately dropped his guard and allowed Skulltaker to kill him. The psychic echo of his self-sacrifice resonated through the warp and banished an entire horde of Slaaneshi demons that had been on the verge of breaching the gate. Even in death, the Solitaire served a purpose. Even in defeat, the warrior chose the manner and meaning of their ending. They are feared by every living creature in the galaxy, including other Eldari, because the darkness they carry within them is contagious. To speak to a Solitaire outside of a ritual performance is said to bring a curse. To touch one is even worse. They wander the webway alone, appearing at a mask's side only when they choose to, joining a battle or a performance, and then vanishing again into the darkness when it is done. They are among the very few beings who can freely enter the Black Library of Chaos, the Eldari's most forbidden repository of knowledge about the ruinous powers. And according to Eldai folktales, many heroes have encountered a mysterious stranger who later turned out to be either a Solitaire or the Laughing God himself, the two being nearly indistinguishable. They are doom given form, and they have made peace with that. Number 7. Skulltaker. In the realm of chaos, deep within the brass citadel of Kharn, the blood god sits upon a throne made from the skulls of countless warriors. Mountains of bone surround it, stretching in every direction, each skull a tribute offered by the daemons and champions who serve the Lord of War and Murder. And the single demon who has contributed more skulls to that mountain than any other being in the history of the mortal or immortal universes is Yuzhul, better known across every battlefield in every dimension as Skulltaker, the sacred executioner of the blood god. The story of Skulltaker begins at the moment of his creation, because from the very first instant of his existence, he knew exactly what he was made to do. When Kharn created Yuzhul, the daemon's first act was to chop the head off the nearest creature it could find, which happened to be another bloodletter. There was no hesitation, no confusion, no moment of disorientation as a newly born intelligence tries to understand what it is and what it is supposed to do. Yuzhul simply existed, saw another living thing, and killed it. That was the start of a career of decapitation that has continued unbroken for millennia beyond counting, stretching across the mortal and immortal universes alike. When Yuzhul took his 888th skull, the sacred number of Kharn, the blood god chose him as an entrant into the skull pit, the proving ground within the brass citadel where aspiring bloodletter champions fight for the right to become heralds. The skull pit is not a training ground. It is a death pit. Every bloodletter who enters it fights until they can no longer fight, and only the strongest survive. Yuzhul did not merely survive, he was flawless. He beheaded every single opponent placed before him without receiving so much as a scratch in return. Not a cut, not a nick, nothing. Kharn was pleased, more than pleased. The blood god anointed Yuzhul as both a herald and his personal sacred executioner, a title that no other demon has ever held, and bestowed upon him the singular name of Skulltaker. The daemon's body swelled with warp energies, growing larger and more powerful, and its hellblade transformed into the Slayer Sword, a weapon forged from a shard of Kharn's own wrath, capable of cutting through reinforced plasteel and felling even the most monstrous creatures with a single well-placed blow. What makes Skulltaker truly nightmarish is not just his skill, but his methodology, which is calculated and deliberate in a way that most servants of Kharn are not. In the middle of the most frenzied battle, when blood is spraying and bodies are falling all around, Skulltaker does not lose himself to the madness the way other bloodletters do. He is still a demon of hatred and rage, make no mistake, but his fury takes the form of an intense, obsessive focus rather than mindless frenzy. He scans the battlefield with cold purpose, looking for the mightiest warrior the enemy has to offer. And when he finds one, he cuts his way through everything standing between himself and that target, hacking contemptuously through anyone foolish enough to get in his path, until he reaches his chosen opponent and can begin the real work. Those who flee are killed instantly. Skulltaker has no patience for cowardice and will not waste time on an unworthy opponent. But those who stand and fight suffer a fate far worse. The sacred executioner is a duelist beyond compare, But his style is deliberately, methodically cruel. He does not go for the killing blow. He takes his opponent apart, piece by piece, shattering their limbs one by one, dismembering and despoiling them with cold precision until they are rendered completely helpless. Only when his victim lies limbless and broken on the ground does the Skulltaker allow them final release. He grasps their head in his clawed hand, speaks the 8 words of sacrifice, and wreathes the victim's skull in magical fire, burning away the flesh until nothing remains but bare bone. Then he tears the skull free, holds it aloft for all to see, and places it in the great sack he carries on his back, alongside all the other trophies he has claimed during the battle. When the fighting is done and Skulltaker returns to the brass citadel, he presents his collection to Kharn. The blood god takes most of the skulls for himself, impaling them on the brass spikes that adorn the ramparts of his keep, or adding them to the ever-growing skull throne. But a few, those rare trophies from opponents who actually presented a genuine challenge, Kharn allows Skulltaker to keep. These, the demon weaves into his infamous cloak of skulls, using bloody sinew taken from the bodies of lesser victims, creating a growing mantle of bone that serves as both a record of his greatest kills and a source of supernatural protection against enemy sorcery and psychic attacks. The roster of Skulltaker's victims reads like a who's who of the galaxy's greatest warriors. He fought alongside the Daemon Primarch Angron during the First War for Armageddon, cutting down several Grey Knights brother captains in open combat, warriors who are specifically trained and equipped to fight and destroy daemons. On Agrippina VI, he killed the Orc war boss Grimsnag Urk in a titanic duel that lasted an entire day and an entire night, the 2 combatants wading through the mutilated corpses of what had once been the war boss's unstoppable horde. At Harren Shemash, a full score of Craftworld Elderly Exarchs, warriors whose prodigious skill and centuries of experience made them some of the finest fighters the Elderly species had ever produced, fell to his blade one after another, each one hoping to be the one who finally stopped him. None were. No one commands the Skulltaker, not even the mightiest bloodthirsters of the First Circle of Murder. The greatest daemons in all of Kharn's legions have authority over him. He rides the legendary juggernaut Kultiran, a demonic mount of living brass and boiling blood that was said to be the toughest beast in Kharn's infernal stockade. Kultiran had killed more of its own kind than any other juggernaut, before or since, and it once shattered the wall of its compound in a bid for freedom that required a dozen heralds of Kharn to stop. Skulltaker chose Kultiran from the pack after watching the beast gore 3 heralds at once, recognizing a kindred spirit. Together, the pair has stormed out of the warp to harvest skulls across the galaxy more times than anyone has bothered to count, and they will continue to do so until the stars go dark and there are no more heads left to take. Number 8. Eversor Assassins. The Imperium of Man does not always send armies to solve its problems. Sometimes the problem is not an army or a fleet or a fortified position. Sometimes the problem is people. Specific people in specific places, surrounded by layers of security, bodyguards, and infrastructure that would take a conventional military force weeks or months to penetrate. Sometimes the problem is a heretical cult that has spread so thoroughly through a planetary government that simply removing the leader would not be enough, because a dozen replacements are waiting in the wings, and the rot goes all the way to the bottom. When that sort of problem arises, the Imperium does not send a soldier or a general. It sends a living weapon, and the most terrifying weapon in the entire arsenal of the Officio Assassinorum, the most unsubtle and devastating instrument of imperial justice, is not a precision rifle or a perfectly administered poison. It is a screaming, drug-fueled nightmare in a skull mask, dropped from orbit in a cryogenic coffin, already awake, already raging, already in motion before it hits the ground. It is the Eversor Assassin, where the other temples of the Officio Assassinorum produce operatives who specialize in stealth, subtlety, disguise, and perfectly targeted eliminations. The Eversor Temple creates berserkers. These are not assassins in any traditional sense of the word. An Eversor does not sneak in, eliminate a single target, and slip back out undetected. An Eversor crashes through the front door and kills everything inside. Their mission is not to remove a single individual. It is to annihilate an entire command structure and everyone connected to it. Every guard, every servant, Every aide, every clerk, every single human being in the target area is marked for death, because the purpose of an Eversor deployment is not just to kill, it is to terrify. To leave such a mark of absolute destruction and horror that no one who survives, no one who hears about what happened, will ever again consider opposing the will of the Emperor. The process of creating an Eversor is closer to manufacturing than it is to recruitment. But the candidate must be naturally hyper-violent, with an inborn capacity for aggression that goes far beyond anything normal, and they must have the right genetic makeup to withstand the staggering amount of augmentation and chemical enhancement that will be pumped into their body. Once selected, they are stripped down to their raw physical components and rebuilt from the inside out. A secondary heart is implanted as a failsafe in case the primary one is damaged. Their skeleton is restructured to increase stamina and aerobic performance. Adrenal ducts are surgically installed that speed up the brain's higher functions to superhuman levels, allowing the Eversor to make complex tactical calculations and split-second decisions in fractions of a heartbeat. Their metabolism is altered, their immune system rewritten, their pain receptors modified, and then come the drugs. Frenzon, Fury, Terminus, Destroyer, a cocktail of military-grade combat stimulants, so powerful and so volatile that a single dose would kill an ordinary human being instantly. These chemicals alter the Eversor's state of mind, turning simple dislike into frothing, uncontrollable hatred, and the wish to serve the Imperium into suicidal absolute determination. The drugs are also ferociously addictive. The Eversor cannot function without them. They cannot sleep. They cannot calm down. They cannot exist in any state other than a permanent, screaming combat readiness. The only way to safely contain an Eversor between missions is to lock them in cryogenic stasis aboard secret ships scattered across the Imperium, frozen solid in their coffins until someone at the very highest levels of the Imperial hierarchy decides it is time to thaw one out and point it at a problem. When that time comes, the Eversor is loaded into a drop pod and launched from orbit. They wake in mid-descent, already flooded with stimulants, already in a state of psychotic rage, their body performing at the absolute physical limit of what augmented human biology can produce. They hit the ground like a meteor and start killing immediately. Armed with an executioner pistol that combines a bolt pistol with a needle weapon loaded with lethal neurotoxin. A power blade, a neuro-gauntlet that can inject devastating nerve agents through virtually any armor, and melter bombs for going through walls and tanks. The Eversor tears through the target area like a living hurricane of bladed fury. There is no subtlety, there is no restraint, there is no mercy. There are no survivors. The Eversor kills everyone. Their speed is so far beyond what any normal human being should be capable of, that the few eyewitnesses who have survived an Eversor attack, usually by being far enough from the target area that the assassin did not bother with them, describe the experience as watching something from a nightmare that they cannot fully process. A skulled figure moving too fast to track, screaming words that are not words, killing everything it touches with a mechanical, relentless efficiency that does not pause, does not hesitate, does not stop. And then comes the most terrifying part of the entire process, when the Eversor finally goes down, whether from accumulated wounds, enemy fire, or simply the catastrophic failure of a body that has been pushed so far past its natural limits that it is quite literally tearing itself apart. The drugs inside their system react violently to the metabolic onset of death. Their body chemistry goes critical. The chemical compounds that kept them alive and fighting detonate, and the Eversor's corpse explodes with the force of a plasma warhead, taking everything and everyone nearby with it in a final, screaming eruption of destruction. Even in death, the Eversor Assassin serves the Imperium. The last act of their existence is one final kill. Number 9. Jain Zar. She was the first. Before there were aspect warriors, before there were shrines dedicated to the different paths of war, before the craft worlds had developed the strict emotional disciplines that would save the remnants of the Eldari species from being consumed by their own psychic natures, before all of that, in the blood-soaked ruins of a civilization that had just destroyed itself in the most catastrophic event the galaxy had ever seen, there was a young girl named Phereathil. She had been raised as a gladiatrix, a blood dancer who killed for the entertainment of shrieking crowds. She had known nothing else. And she survived the fall of the Eldari Empire because she was too stubborn and too angry to die. Jain Zar, the Storm of Silence, is the Phoenix Lord of the Howling Banshees, the first student of a sermon, the Hand of Asuryan, and quite possibly the oldest continuously active warrior in the entire galaxy. Her story begins on the world of Idafaren, in the years immediately after the birth of Slaanesh, when the psychic shockwave of the new Chaos God's arrival killed billions of Eldari across the galaxy and tore a permanent hole in reality that would become the Eye of Terror. The young Farathil had spent her entire life in the arenas, fighting whatever was brought before her, killing because that was all she knew how to do. When the fall came, and the crowds stopped cheering, and the arenas emptied, and the world began to die around her, she simply kept going. She wandered through the ruins of her civilization, alone and purposeless, until she encountered a survivor named Iliathin at a crumbling temple of the old Eldari gods. Iliathin was contemplating ending his own life, overwhelmed by the scale of what had been lost. Farathil interrupted him. He was not grateful. He shunned her, refused to speak to her, wanted nothing to do with another living being. But when Drukhari raiders came hunting for the young gladiatrix, Iliathin saved her life. In the process, he discovered his own purpose. He renamed himself Asuman, the Hand of Asuryan, the first Phoenix Lord, and he took Farathil as his first disciple, giving her a new name, Jain Zar, the Storm of Silence. Under his guidance, she learned discipline and control, the ability to channel her rage and her grief and her pain into focused, purposeful action, rather than blind violence. She became the first of the Exarchs, the warriors who commit themselves fully and permanently to the path of the warrior. And when her training was complete, she went out across the stars to establish her own aspect warrior shrines, teaching the deadly art of the Howling Banshee to Eldari on every major craft world in the galaxy. In combat, Jain Zar is a force of nature. She is the second fastest of all the Phoenix Lords, exceeded only by Baharoth of the Swooping Hawks. She wields the Blade of Destruction, a weapon of ancient and terrible power, and the Janus Maw, the Silent Death, a Triskiel-throwing weapon that she can hurl with lethal accuracy and recall to her hand instantly. But her most famous and most feared weapon is her voice. Jain Zar perfected the scream that steals the psychosonic barrage that every howling banshee channels through their ceremonial mask. When ordinary banshees use this ability, the effect is devastating enough, stunning enemies and leaving them momentarily paralyzed. When Jain Zar opens her mouth and screams, the sound can literally liquefy the brains of anyone standing in front of her. What makes Jain Zar truly fearsome is not just her individual prowess, but what she represents. Phoenix Lords do not truly die. When a Phoenix Lord falls in battle, their consciousness, the accumulated memories and skills and experiences of every warrior who has ever worn their armor, retreats into the ancient war gear and waits. When a new Exarch is chosen to take up the burden, they don the armor and the mask and merge their own mind with the composite spirit that lives within it, a spirit that stretches all the way back to the original Phoenix Lord. The individual who puts on the armor ceases to exist as a separate person. They become the Phoenix Lord, carrying every technique, every lesson, and every hard-won insight from thousands upon thousands of years of continuous warfare. Jain Zar has died and been reborn more times than anyone can count. She was killed by Night Lords during a battle on the world of Tsagawalsa, only to return. She was cut in two by Drazhar in the Shadow Realm of Shardome, her armor given to Mandrake specifically to prevent her resurrection, and she came back anyway, through the intervention of Ynnead. In her second duel with Drazhar on the lost craft world of Xandros, empowered by Ynnead's divine energy, she finally defeated the Living Sword, proving that even the most unbeatable opponent can be brought down when the Storm of Silence is given enough reasons to rage. She is the most active of all the Phoenix Lords in the ongoing war against the forces of chaos, and she has championed the cause of the Ynnari more passionately than any other figure of her stature. Of all the Phoenix Lords, she remains the most devoted to her shrines, frequently returning to craft worlds across the galaxy to train new generations of howling banshees and ensure that the art she created in the aftermath of the fall will never be forgotten. She is the living memory of a dead civilization, an unbroken chain of warriors stretching back to the very beginning, and she intends to keep fighting until her species either finds salvation or runs out of enemies to kill. Number 10. Conrad Curze. We end this list with a monster, not a daemon, not a Xenos horror, not a mindless berserker pumped full of chemicals. A monster in the most human sense of the word. A being who saw the worst in everything and everyone around him, and who decided that the only rational response to a universe that ugly was to become the ugliest thing in it. Conrad Curze, the Night Haunter, Primarch of the 8th Legion, waged war through pure, undiluted, methodical terror. He skinned people alive as a tactical doctrine. He broadcast the screams of the dying across entire cities as a form of psychological warfare. He decorated his warships with flayed human flesh stretched across their hulls, and he was arguably the single most frightening individual in the entire history of the Imperium of Man. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most skilled, the most frightening. Because Conrad Curze understood something about fear that none of his brothers ever did. He understood that fear was not just a byproduct of violence. It was the point. It was the weapon. And in his hands, it was more devastating than any bolter or chainblade ever made. The child who would become Conrad Curze crashed through the surface of the world of Nostromo and into the planet's dark, poisonous core. Nostromo was a world locked in perpetual night, choked with pollution so thick that sunlight never reached the surface. Its economy built on the extraction of adamantium from mines that stretched deep into the planet's bowels. The population lived in abject poverty, crammed into sprawling hive cities where crime was the only real industry, and the justice system existed solely to protect the wealthy from the consequences of exploiting the poor. It was a world that manufactured misery the way other worlds manufactured weapons or food. And into the very worst part of this very worst world, a Primarch was dropped, alone, without parents or guardians, or anyone at all to find him and take him in. Unlike his brothers, nobody adopted Conrad Curze, nobody found this miracle child and recognized something special. He grew up feral in the deepest, darkest parts of Nostromo Quintus, hunting wildlife for food when he could find it, feeding on the dead when he could not, learning human language and behavior by observing the criminals and slaves who populated the lowest levels of the city from a distance. He was never taught right from wrong. Nobody sat him down and explained the concepts of justice and morality. He simply knew. Something inside him, whether it was the Emperor's genetic engineering or something else entirely, allowed him to look at the suffering around him and understand, with absolute clarity, that it was wrong, that hurting people was wrong, that stealing from them was wrong, that the powerful exploiting the weak was wrong. And so he started killing the people who did those things. At first, his methods were crude. Petty criminals started turning up dismembered in the streets. Then, prominent officials and corrupt leaders were found hanged from high windows, their bodies gutted like fish, their faces beaten so badly that identification was impossible. Body parts blocked stormwater drains, pieces of flayed skin dangled from bridges. Severed heads grinned from black balustrades. Within a single year, the crime rate of Nostromo Quintus fell to near zero. Mothers began threatening their children that if they did not behave, the Night Haunter would come for them. The nickname entered common usage, describing a dark creature that stalked the city, ready to disembowel anyone it judged to be a criminal with dirty, razor-sharp talons. For a time, it worked. Crime disappeared. The quality of life on Nostromo actually improved as the fear of the Night Haunter forced even the wealthy elite to moderate their worst excesses. Curze took his place as the undisputed monarch of the planet, and he ruled it fairly by his own standards, showing patience and wisdom in his governance, even as the violence of his enforcement methods grew more extreme. He allowed himself hope that his world could be saved, that his people could be better. But then the nightmares came. Conrad Curze was psychically gifted, and his particular ability was precognition, the ability to see the future. But unlike his brother Sanguinius, whose gift of foresight was manageable and did not define his personality, Curze was plagued exclusively with visions of darkness, horror, suffering, and his own inevitable death. Every time he seemed to be gaining control of himself, every time hope began to take root, another seizure would hit him, another vision of the inevitable end, another reminder that everything he built would be destroyed and that he himself would die alone and broken and betrayed. And every time a vision struck him, he went hunting again. The line between justice and cruelty blurred. Then it disappeared entirely. When the Emperor found him on Nostromo, Curze told his father that he already knew what was going to happen. He had seen it all. He knew what the Emperor would do to him in the end. But he pledged his loyalty anyway, because his visions were always inevitable, and resistance was pointless. He was given the 8th Legion, which he renamed the Night Lords, and he was immediately put to work as the Emperor's personal enforcer, a terror weapon in the shape of a god. The Night Lords did not fight conventional wars. They cut the power to cities. They took over Vox communications and broadcast the screams of the dying to the remaining population. They flayed people alive and left the bodies in public spaces as warnings. They adorned their armor with images of death and hung skulls and skin from every available surface. They fought dirty, ugly, without a shred of honor or mercy, because their job was not to defeat the enemy in battle. Their job was to make the idea of opposing the Imperium so terrifying, so viscerally horrifying, that entire sectors would submit without a single shot being fired. And under Curze's command, it worked. Planets surrendered the moment the Night Lords entered their system, because the stories of what happened to those who resisted had preceded them by years. But the other Primarchs found out. Rogel Dawn, Corax, Vulcan, Gilliman. They were disgusted. They demanded that Curze be censured and his methods banned, and the Emperor agreed. He publicly reprimanded his son for doing exactly what he had privately ordered him to do. The hypocrisy of this, the absolute betrayal of it, broke something in Conrad Curze that had been close to breaking for his entire life. He attacked Rogel Dawn without warning, nearly killing his brother before being restrained. He tried to assassinate Lionel Johnson, and only failed because the Lion was one of the very few fighters who could match a Primarch in close combat. He grew worse and worse, his nightmares intensifying, his violence becoming more personal and more cruel. In his private chambers, he began dissecting corpses and arranging them in elaborate patterns, a macabre artwork that his few remaining allies could not explain or justify. When he discovered that the wealthy nobles of Nostromo had tricked him into recruiting criminals and prisoners for his legion instead of the finest citizens, he concluded that his world was beyond saving. He returned to Nostromo with his fleet and personally ordered the destruction of the entire planet, superheating it through its weakest point until it shattered like glass. Then he carried on, as if nothing had happened. When the Horus heresy erupted, Curze sided with the traitors, not out of any loyalty to chaos, not because he believed in Horus's cause, but because the Emperor had betrayed him, or so he believed, and the Imperium was built on a lie. He revealed his treachery during the drop site massacre at Istvan V, and from that point forward, the Night Lords fought their own private war of terror across the galaxy, targeting both loyalist forces and civilian populations with the same horrifying tactics they had always used. After the heresy ended, Curze retreated to the world of Sagwalsa and waited. He did not build fortifications. He did not rally his forces. He sat in his throne room, surrounded by his macabre trophies, and he waited for what he knew was coming. Because he had seen it. He had always seen it. His last words, delivered to the Calidus assassin M. Shen, whom he allowed entry to his palace and permitted to strike the killing blow, were directed at the Emperor through the assassin's recording devices. He wanted his father to know that everything he had done, every skinned corpse, every broadcast scream, every act of unspeakable horror, had been in service of proving a single point: that the Imperium was a lie. That justice did not exist. That fear was the only thing that worked, and the Emperor had known that when he created the Night Lords and then punished them for being exactly what he made them to be. Whether Conrad Curze was a tragic figure destroyed by forces beyond his control, a genuinely prescient being who saw the truth of the universe and could not bear it, or a psychopath who used his gifts as an excuse to indulge his darkest impulses, is a question that the law has never cleanly answered. Both are true. Both can be true at the same time. And that ambiguity is what makes the Night Haunter one of the most compelling and most feared figures in the entire Warhammer 40k universe. He was not the strongest of his brothers. He was not the fastest or the most skilled, but he was the one who understood what you were afraid of, and he used it to destroy you before the fighting even started. His armor bore a revolting mantle of tattered human skin, a patchwork of agonized faces fastened with fresh skulls. His fingers were sharpened into razor talons capable of shredding even the strongest power armor. His greaves were fitted with a pair of vicious lightning claws that he had named Mercy and Forgiveness, a piece of dark humor that perfectly captured the twisted philosophy of the Night Haunter. Two things he never offered, two things he never believed in, named after the virtues he had been denied from the moment of his birth, carried into battle by a demigod who had decided, after a lifetime of prophecy and pain, that the universe only understood one language, and he spoke it fluently. And there you have it. 10 warriors whose names echo across the battlefields of a galaxy locked in eternal war. From berserkers who cannot be stopped, to swordsmen who cannot be permanently killed. From guardians of impossible loyalty to monsters born from madness and cruelty, and the darkest corners of the human soul. Each one of them is feared for different reasons, but all of them share one simple truth. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no shortage of things that can kill you. But some of them are so good at it that they have become legends. Stories told around fires in military camps on a million worlds. Names whispered in the corridors of power to remind the powerful that even they are not safe. Warnings scratched into the walls of command bunkers by men and women who knew they were about to die and wanted someone, anyone, to know what killed them. They are all out there. Every last one of them, still fighting, still killing, still adding to the oceans of blood that flow through this setting like rivers through a dying landscape. And if you ever find yourself standing on a battlefield in the 41st millennium and you hear one of these names spoken aloud, do not ask questions. Do not try to be brave. Do not stand your ground and think that you can be the exception. Run, because bravery will not save you from any of them. Nothing will save you from any of them. Not from these 10. So which one of these legendary killers do you think is the most terrifying? Which one keeps you up at night? And more importantly, which one do you think you could survive meeting face to face? Let us know in the comments. And while you are there, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on more lore.